So you're anti-feminist and obviously for men's rights. Are you for any kind of movement for women's rights that does not follow the same principle that feminism has
Oh,
been showcasing?
I would totally embrace a movement. I wouldn't say a movement for women's rights because women actually have more rights, more legal rights in the U.S. than men do. Right? They have the right to refuse consent to parenting. They have the right to genital integrity. Right? They have those are rights that they have enshrined in law, right? Or at least in legal precedent that men have no equivalent rights to. No equivalent rights. And every other right that men have, women also have under the law, right? So I don't think that there's really a reason for a movement to promote the rights of women, maybe to protect some of the rights. And this is one thing Canada has, and this is, I always sort of feel sorry for the States. One thing that Canada has, we have abortion legislation. Right? We have legislation legalizing abortion. Legislation that went through both houses. It was voted up in Parliament, went to the Senate, it was approved by the Senate, and then it was signed by the Governor General on behalf of the Queen. Right? It is a law. And it's very difficult to overturn a law. Right? Roe v. Wade was not only just a precedent, it's not a law, it's a precedent. Not only that, it was a really shitty decision. It was a really questionable legal decision. The merits of the argument are absolutely absurd. And because of that, it's vulnerable. It's always vulnerable to challenge. It would have been much better if 3 years after, if she had lost that case, and 3 years after there had been another case, or they, oh, heaven forbid, a piece of legislation introduced that passed, but another case that came that had a judge that actually made a sane decision in favor of abortion rights, right? Because that would be less easy to challenge, right? But the nature of that decision and the fact that it's only a precedent and not a law, right, means that particular women's right is going to constantly be under attack. It's not under attack in Canada, right? In fact, somebody introduced a private member's bill recently, or tried to he wanted to, because right now Canada's abortion legislation is working on the definitions, it's operating on the definitions of life that use medical knowledge from about 100 or 120 years ago, right? So very antiquated medical knowledge as to at what point a fetus is viable, at what point life begins, where we should put the limit of, is there a limit that we need to place, right? All of those things. And he wanted to sort of introduce a bill to actually ask the question of, okay, so how do we decide with the medical knowledge we have now, at what point life begins, at what point a fetus is a person who has a right to life, right? I think that's a valid question. Our Prime Minister, the dreaded conservative traditionalist Stephen Harper, said, I'm not opening that can of worms, thank you very much. Your bill is rejected. Right? He's not going to even touch it. This is the good thing about having it be a law. We don't have to constantly protect abortion rights in our country. You guys do. And that's one thing that I think the women's movement should be concentrating on. I don't think they should be concentrating on expanding them or, and especially not taking the advice of those two researchers who wrote about post-birth abortion and how that should be ethical in the Journal of Medical Ethics. I don't think that is something the women's movement should put their hands to, but there will be a need for a certain amount of vigilance, to guarantee that women have the right to bodily autonomy in this sense. And there are other areas where women's rights need to be protected on a case-by-case basis. everybody's rights can, even when they're enshrined in law, can be infringed on, right? They can be violated. They can be violated by an individual. They can be violated by the state, right? And a women's movement would be excellent to see to that on a case-by-case basis, right? But I really don't think there are any more rights that women need. The right to what? Can you think of a right, a fundamental right that women don't have that they need?
I can't. I mean, the one that they still cry about is the pay wage gap, which has been
Oh, well, it's
debunked
always
by,
about power and money.
yeah.
With feminists, it's always about power and money. Even when it's about sex, it's really about power. Because rape isn't about sex, it's about power, according to feminists, which isn't necessarily true. It's about sex and power, but they think rape is about power, not sex. So literally everything that feminists talk about and everything they long for is power and money. That's their entire focus, is power and money.
Well, domestic violence shelters.
But the entire philosophy, the entire feminist model of domestic violence is based on power differentials. It's based on the relative political positions of men and women in society. It's about patriarchal power and the subjugation of women. Right? And so domestic violence shelters empower women to leave.
And get a lot of funding, so it's also about money.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like there's no room. And Erin Pizzey, I think she. Oh no, it was Ann Coles, who was wonderful. I had the privilege of driving her from the Windsor Airport across the border into Detroit, and she's just awesome. She's just like incredible. She's like just an incredible woman, and so is Erin Pizzey. She's like, I really should have been drinking with her this whole time, but I, she'll have to forgive me. But one of the things that she talked about was that there is no room in political feminism, right? Movement feminism. Not like just the random people who blog on the internet, not just the random women who consider themselves feminists, but they don't really quite know what it is, right? There's no room for love. There's no room for a genuine love for the opposite sex. There's no room for that because it's all about power and money. Right? And power and money often have plenty to do with love. Right? But power and money are not love. Right? Power and money are not respect. Power and money are not everything. Power and money is the focus of that movement. And it just, when you look at, somebody broke down the spending for the Alberta government for men's programs and women's programs. It's my home province, and they found that there was something like $25 million spent on. We're not a big province, right? Population was $25 million spent on women's programs. $57,000 spent on men's programs. Right? And they're lucky that there was $57,000 spent on men's programs, because if feminists had gotten wind that there were men's programs, they would have sued, because they would have been sexist to have men-only programs.
Well, whenever I bring up the men's centers on universities to feminists, they always say, why do we need men's studies?
All of the world is a male safe space, and all of history is men's studies.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's the study of the top 1% of men who made history. It's not the study of the coal miner, right, who came home and stripped off his clothes, and his wife stuck them in a cauldron full of water and used a stick and then wrung them out and hung them on the line, and they weren't even dry before he got to work the next. He had to put them on to go to work the next day, right? That isn't in men's studies, right? That isn't in history, in general history. Like the men who made history were men who made history, right? 99% of men did not make history. Like, you can't generalize those men, that top 1% or that top half of 1%. You can't generalize that to all men. And this is one of the things that, we were talking about earlier. With you, so don't you feel like you're being blamed as, part of a group? Why would I feel like I haven't done any of those things? Why would I feel blamed? Right? I'm not typical, right? And I know a lot of men who feel blamed by, feminist public service ads about domestic violence or rape or whatever, right? I know plenty of women who feel blamed when MRAs, talk about female perpetration of domestic violence and things like that, right? But you are not all women, Cassie. You're not. I'm not all women. And you're not all men, right? And the things that other men do, they got nothing to do with you, right? Other than maybe you could, I don't know, chat with them and maybe, convince them that it's maybe not a good idea to do that, right? And you too, right? The only responsibility you have, and it's a voluntary responsibility, is if you see a woman who's about to make a bad decision that's going to harm others, you could try to talk her out of it. You don't have to. It's not your job. You're not responsible for her. But if you choose to take that responsibility, you can do it, right? And if you fail, that's not a reflection on you. She still made the choice, right? But other than that, right? You're not responsible for the things women do. He's not responsible for the things men do. Like, it's ridiculous to see men and women as this monolithic collectives, right? All women have the same interests, and all men have the same interests, and all women have similar experiences. Oh, women in North America and a woman in Saudi Arabia are connected spiritually by their mutual experience of womanhood. Give me a break. No, we're not. I don't know anything about. Well, I mean, I sort of have an idea because I've looked into it, but I don't have a whole lot in common with women in Saudi Arabia, right? And the men in Saudi Arabia don't have a whole lot in common with your counter guy, right? Like, they just don't. And to think that somehow, because you share genitalia with a certain class of people, you are responsible for their behavior in some way, or that you should feel guilty for their behavior in some way, or you should feel blamed, like, unless you're being blamed as a gender, all men are rapists, or all women are gold diggers, right? And even then, if somebody's making the claim, all women are gold diggers, right? You'd be like, yeah, fuck that.
But that's what I hear. I mean,
That's not true.
no, I
And
mean,
you know
like,
it's not true.
I heard Warren talking. I've talked to him many hours, and he says,
Hypergamy.
what's that?
Hypergamy. He talked about hypergamy. One of the things about hypergamy is women are not gold diggers, right? Gold digger is somebody who's going to use a man for his money with no care for him, right? Hypergamy is the tendency in women to marry up. They tend to be attracted to men of higher social status, and usually with more wealth. Not always. Sometimes a man has social status, like he's in a band, even though he doesn't make a lot of money, right? Or he's an artist and very talented, but he doesn't make a lot of money, but he has a social status that comes along, a social cachet that comes along with that. Now, a lot of people, even in the men's movement, a lot of people would want to portray that as gold digging, right? And one thing I've always tried to do is to not apply a moral judgment to a behavior like that. because it is a common behavior in women. It's actually a predisposition. It's a propensity, right? There's a good reason for that. That's what got us from 2 million years ago, just like father investment in children, right? That's what got us from 2 million years ago to now, right? Was the fact that women knew instinctively, right, that there's a lot of their life, right? Even if you're self-sufficient now, right? Imagine having no birth control, right? Imagine every time you have sex, you could be pregnant. And not just pregnant, but 9 months of pregnancy, and then 4 years of breastfeeding, right? And then the very next time you have sex, you could be pregnant, right? Imagine living your life in that state, right? Of course, you want to be attracted to a man who's not just capable of looking after himself, who's not just capable of looking after himself and you, or himself and you and your one child. You are going to want a man who, for periods of time, is capable of looking after himself and you and several children, right? While you are stuck with a baby on your boob, right? And like you're just not capable of even performing the labor to reasonably support yourself, let alone all of these children, right? Of course, hypergamy is necessary. Hypergamy would not have become a trait common to women, not in everyone, but common to women, if it didn't work, right? There's no moral judgment in that. It was necessary, right? It was absolutely necessary. And like, so to look at that as some kind of moral failing, or to take the bringing up of the topic as an accusation of moral failure. This is one of the things I chide some MREs about, right? It's not a moral failure. It's just an is. And it's an is that was necessary. And the reason that we know it was necessary is because it's an is, right? It just is.
I don't know. I guess just how Warren says, you know, a man slaves away at a job he hates for someone else to spend his money while he dies sooner. It just comes off like women are out to get men and make their life worse. I don't know why it comes off like that to me. Is it the programming? What is it? Like,
I don't know. Maybe you're just sensitive. Maybe you're just more sensitive than me. I'm pretty thick-skinned. I would have worded that sentence differently. I know that it's a line from his book, and he, you know, but it really is. A lot of feminists have this idea that career is fulfillment, right? And that family is a distraction from that fulfillment. And a lot of men think of family as fulfillment, and career is what they have to do in order to have family, right? So it's kind of like, for a woman, she wants to go out and work and she wants to be fulfilled in her career and all of that. A man, I mean, frankly, 90% of us don't have careers, we have jobs, and most of us want to work less, not more. But you look at that and you look at the way, because women have the choice to have that career or not, right? And they prioritize, if they prioritize their career, it's because they value it very highly, right? Men have no choice but to prioritize their career, right? And so even if they value the career highly, because they didn't have a choice, right? There's still a resentment there, right? Because they didn't have a choice. And they do have to go to work every day, and in the words of Ray Barone's dad on Everybody Loves Raymond, bust my hump, right? Every single day, right? And often what the woman does at home, especially since the 50s, 60s, when all of these modern conveniences came in, if she's a stay-at-home mother, what she does at home looks very, very easy in comparison, right? Very light duty, right? And I have to say, if you keep a house like I do, it's like ultralight duty. But you know, so men are doing this, and one of the reasons that they're doing this is simply to have a family, right? It's what's necessary to have a family. It's a condition put on them in order to have a family, right? And a woman can have a family anytime because she doesn't actually need a man to commit to her anymore, right? Because she can have a family without social censure, without being impoverished, without all those consequences that were on her, you know, 100 years ago, right? She can make it, right? If she needs help, the government's there, and also they'll take child support from the biological father, right? Like she can make it on her own. She can have a family on her own. She can make that unilateral decision on her own, right? A man has to have a woman's cooperation in order to have a family. And that means he has very much less independent choice as to what his life is going to look like, because she has to accept him, right? And bargain with him and make a deal with him to give him a family, and he has to live up to some expectations, right? And I think that a lot of men are starting to really resent it, and they would not resent it if women were still stuck in their roles. I know that for a fact. If women were still stuck in the role of homemaker, I will do some piecework for pin money, right? I will mend the neighbor's clothes for pin money, and I will raise the children, and I will put 3 meals on the table for my husband every day, and I will do that, and I will stay married to him for life, and all of those things, even if I'm miserable, and even if he's miserable, we will do that. Right? If men and women were equally stuck in their roles, there would be no resentment of women on the part of men. Right? But women are not stuck anymore. They're really not. It seems the more free they get, the more they complain. The more feminists complain, the angry the feminists get. Right? I mean, I was watching an interview with Gloria Steinem that was filmed a couple of years ago. And the interviewer said, well, you know, would you say women are still oppressed? And she said, I'd say they're more oppressed than ever. How on earth does that even compute? It's because women are less satisfied. They're angrier. I think they actually have too much choice. Nobody does well with too much choice. Give me a menu with 100 items and I'll never make up my mind. I'll sit there starving and agonizing.